Welcome everybody to our monthly meeting of NDGiFTS North America, the organization devoted to promoting neurodiversity in the workplace. Today we have my ideal format, which is a conversational mode among various people about a topic that we're all interested in. I have three guests with me today who are going to talk about their views on neurodiversity self-disclosure. But again, this is an open forum, so we really want to help generate as much of a conversation around this idea as possible. The prompting, and this is where I really owe thanks to Andrew. I'm sure many of you know Elon Musk recently went on television and self-disclosed, which was, I think, overall a positive thing for the neurodiversity community. Although you have to take into effect that as a billionaire, the issues facing neurodiversity self-disclosure, he is somewhat insulated from them. I'm hoping it takes something less than building a rocket to Mars to get someone the leverage to self-disclose, because that bar is a little bit too high for most of us. But Andrew, I remember, posted on LinkedIn some of his thoughts about the issues of self-disclosure. I know this is a very timely topic, and it really helped prompt the idea this is a good time to have a conversation. So let me introduce you. Andrew Komarov, is that right?
Yeah.
Komarov, yep. Melissa Williams, and Jeff Snyder are our chief conversationalists. But again, we'll have opportunity this hour for everybody to chime in. So I'm going to start with Andrew, with the prompt, and then move to Melissa and Jeff, and then see where the conversation goes. So Andrew, tell me a little bit what your thoughts were when Elon Musk made his big announcement.
The autism community is toxic. Oh, no, wait, are we talking about in the workplace? Okay. I thought it was good. It made sense if we were deciding to armchair diagnose. I mean, that didn't surprise me. But, you know, like it's different for somebody like him who kind of known for doing or saying what he wants and already just, you know, respected in business. I mean, it's not even so easy, even if you have your own business, right? Because nobody's going to choose not to do business with Tesla at this point because of that. Or if they do, like, it's like if one or two people don't buy a car, Elon doesn't really care, right? I don't know if he cares much about anything. So I don't think I think it's good. Maybe if anything, it will help other people feel more comfortable to be able to disclose, but he is privileged in that way, not just from his like wealth or anything like that, but just from where he is in a career. And, you know, like I bet you if he had disclosed that, if he even knew when he was like trying to raise money for PayPal, I think it could have been a very different story, right? So
that's an excellent point. I mean, when he was starting out, if he had shared this information with his potential investors, the issue is would they have thought it as interesting and moved on, or would it have created reservations? And PayPal, late 90s, right? Am I correct?
Yeah. And I mean, because there's disclosing from, you know, because there's disclosing when you have your own business, then there's disclosing from an employer. And, you know, I would argue neither of them have legal protections, although some might argue one of them does. You know, for example, I was looking to, you know, discrimination happens, whether it's legal or not. There isn't really much you can do about it. So, for example, I'm positive I know I've lost business opportunities because of disclosure, but but there it is, right? So, but that's lack of awareness or anything more than anything else, right? Ableism, bias, etc.
Right. You know, my concern is that the public attitude has changed somewhat and there's more awareness and a greater appreciation than in the past about what neurodiverse people can do, but I don't get a sense that we're quite where we need to be. When I hear about companies, particularly tech companies, wanting to hire neurodiverse people, they tend to think very narrowly in terms of people who may be on the autism spectrum and who have incredibly focused tech skills. And they don't really realize that's a very limited picture of what neurodiverse people are and how neurodiversity affected. So there's obviously a lot of work to be done. Melissa, what are your thoughts on these issues from your perspective?
Right. So, as Peter and I had chatted about, so I have an ADHD diagnosis. So it's a slightly different shift, but it's been really interesting for me at least. So I am not self-employed. And I work as an instructional designer in higher education. So just briefly, what I do is help faculty. I like to joke that I help faculty get their courses online in a way that doesn't suck for their students, but to make the most of effective learning online for students. But because of that, I've been in a couple of different environments, and it's been really, I've been thinking about this topic since Peter asked me to come chat. And really what I keep thinking about is the place where I was before my prior place of employment as compared to my current place of employment. I received my ADHD diagnosis while I was at my prior place of employment. And so I started off with some struggles that I wasn't quite as self-aware as I am now. But I was very upfront about the fact that I was pursuing a diagnosis and that I had gotten one. And I felt kind of excited about it because I was like, aha, here are all the things about me that I love, and here are the things that I struggle with. And now I know how to navigate better. But I was at a very small standalone law school, private, and the HR department and frankly, my boss were just really problematic. And I watched my boss push people out of positions more than once who were very clearly neurodiverse or had been very upfront about being neurodiverse. And it felt very unsafe and unstable. And so the fact that I was upfront about it, I felt like I paid for it there. However, I'm currently at a state school, and the very first thing I decided to do was the first day when I met my boss, I described myself a bit and I said, I'd like you to know I have an ADHD diagnosis, and that can make me pretty fantastic at a lot of the work that I do. And there are some things that I struggle with, and I want to let you know what those are so that you can be you can help me be self-aware and know that I'm open to listening if there are any concerns, or if you see things that I do well, I'd love to hear that too. And I will say, I think that having a really strong infrastructure where diversity is it's not just lip service to diversity, but real appreciation for difference has been important. The fact that my boss is really great at saying, I see that this person does this thing really well, and this is something that they struggle with. I want to pair you up with this person who does that thing very well. It's been amazing to watch him get the most out of us without in some way not understanding, the fact that I work differently than other people might work is not only not a problem, but for him, he sees it as a great benefit. And that perspective from a boss makes a huge difference. I will also say my current position is unionized, and I feel very protected by my union. And I think that makes a huge difference as well when you have the kind of added legal protections that come with a collective body like that. So I don't want to pretend that every situation it's a good thing to be out as neurodiverse, but for me personally right now, it's been really great. And it also helps a lot when I talk about universal design for learning, because I can tell people from my own experience and from my son's experience what has been really beneficial for us. And it gives me a little bit of street cred too. So I like the fact that I can very much be myself in my workspace. But I've seen challenges to that as well.
Okay. Interesting points, particularly about the combination between your two employers, really night and day.
It's very different.
Very different. I'm going to come back to a few points, but I want to jump over to Jeff and let Jeff give us his views of the issues around self-disclosure. Jeff?
Thank you, Peter. So the truth of the matter is for those of you that just joined, a little bit about myself. I am a neurodiversity. I'm an autism and neurodiversity self-advocate. I am based in Seekonk, Massachusetts, near Providence, Rhode Island. I was diagnosed with autism at 21 months old, and upon my graduation from Seekonk Public Schools in 2007, I became the first student with autism in my town to have completed pre-K through grade 12 without coming from other towns or school districts. And my view with neurodiversity is I actually, when I first began at Borders bookstores. And when I got my first paying job, I was helped by an agency called Attleboro Enterprises. And at the time, I actually was kind of thrown into the fire in terms of getting the support after high school, as opposed to getting it during high school. And it wasn't until after I left Borders that I went to Stop and Shop, and I'm also with a unionized company. And the thing that I like about Stop and Shop is that they're they're a very accommodating organization for people with autism or any other kind of neurodiverse skills like myself. And I believe it's a very, very common practice for some of these companies. I'm not going to say which particular companies, that can overlook people that can't contribute to a specific organization. And that to me is very bothersome because you're denying people the right. You're denying neurodiverse people the right to do what they want to do, and that's a problem for me personally. But I think the big factor is that all companies can be successful if they open their doors to neurodiverse people like myself. I mean, I didn't go to college, but I'm one, and I work as a porter. I'm a sort of a janitor at my Stop and Shop, but I'm kind of happy the way I am. I mean, even if and it doesn't matter if you get a college degree or if you get a high school diploma and just get a part-time paying job, you can make a big difference. And that's my mission for someone who wants to make this as neurodiverse as possible for others.
Thanks, Jeff. I appreciate that. You know, the three of you have given a really wide picture of what's out there. Does anyone else want to weigh in for a moment in terms of their own experiences? Again, I wanted to open up the conversation to as many people as possible. So if anyone want to raise their hand or go in the chat or whatnot. Oh, Ashley. Okay, Ashley, go ahead.
Hey, I'm new. I've been a part of the LinkedIn group for a while. Like, I know Andrew, Corey's here. Hi, guys. I also have ADHD. I was diagnosed in the late 90s when I went to college. I had a few teachers in high school and when I was younger say like, oh, you know, we think she has ADHD, but back then it was like the little boys, hyper crazy. Anyway, I definitely struggled throughout my life, keeping jobs, getting jobs. There's not enough time here to like tell you everything, but I just wanted to mention that this is a very timely topic because I'm working in a place now where this is the first time I've ever disclosed. And I feel like initially it was working out for me. But that being said, I feel like there may be, I don't know. I think when you do disclose, you always kind of wonder like, oh, are they, do they really want me on the project? Or are they just like throwing me a bone? Or do they, you know, are they taking me off a project? So we don't want to stress you out, or we don't want you, or like we want you to focus. That's the prime word, focus. You know, and it's like as soon as someone says focus, I kind of think like, oh, is this about the ADHD, or is this because And I mean, I'll admit there's things I have to work on. I mean, I was interrupting at meetings. I'm working on that. I'm taking notes now. If you guys see me writing when I'm talking, I'm not being rude or like not listening. I'm probably writing down my thoughts so I don't forget what I want to say. I also talk fast. Sorry about that as well. I also talk people's ears off. Also sorry. But I think I do some damn good work. And it might take me, 8 hours instead of 4 hours. And I might be up at 12 a.m. doing it, but I'm going to fucking get it done. I'm sorry. I'm having a day. So I'm just like, back up off me. I will get it done and just trust in me. And I don't appreciate it when people are just constantly like, some coworkers are just kind of like follow up on you like, oh, why didn't you? I guess I feel like once you disclose, you kind of, not you, when I say you, I mean all of us, like, as a society, I kind of feel like it's, thinking, oh, are they, like, do they think that maybe I didn't do it? Or like, I think there's like a lack of trust in a sense. Like, I feel like someone's scared to like trust Ashley with the project. And to be honest, I get that. But here's the thing. If you have a meeting on Wednesday morning at 9 a.m. and you need this work by 8 a.m. on, did I say Monday or Wednesday? Sorry, I forgot. Whatever day. If you give me a hard deadline, like the space shuttle ship, whatever is taking off, I will get you that work. But if you just give me like a kind of like a more of a loose range of dates, I don't know. I'm kind of confused. So anyways, Andrew, I love what you guys are doing. Thank you for letting me speak. That's really all I have to say. I'm just kind of like, I don't know. Cause I used to always say it's good to disclose, but I kind of feel like maybe it does kind of come and bite you in the ass at the end. So I don't know, like, what do we do? Right. So anyways, thanks you guys for listening and I'm happy to be here.
Thanks for sharing. Guillermo, you wanted to pitch in there?
Yes, thank you. Well, I studied in 12 schools. And when you are 14 years old, you think that's super cool. But no, there's nothing cool about that. I remember when I was exposed to the concept of algebra, it took me 2 years to allow my brain to give the opportunity to make to have a letter with a numeric value. My stubborn brain don't get it, and when it says no, it doesn't make any sense. Doesn't matter if everybody around says yes, that's okay. No, again, it took me like 2 years after suddenly I said, okay, so that's the way it is. A equal 2. But anyway, on that process, I won the best. I was born and raised in Colombia, in South America. I won the best test in my school, the national test. I don't know. I was so confused about everything, but suddenly I was the number 1. I don't get it. And I was not cheating. I seriously was doing my stuff. So you don't understand how things work. All what I remember, well, I'm still dealing with that, is that it's a sense of confusion, but out of that confusion, sometimes you get things so easy. And okay, so things start evolving. And what happened next? Oh yeah, when I am applying for a job, people comes to me, hey, we need someone to think out of the box. The problem for me is that I am all the time out of the box. What I need to do is to think inside the box. But I can't say that because they're gonna say, wow, such a weirdo. We don't want that person here. But that's true. I'm always thinking out of the box. So it's a learning process that on that, the best thing is I want to hide. I don't want people to know that I am such a different person. I see things that an average person, nobody sees. So in that process, I remember telling my managers, I process things different. I don't know how it works, and they don't believe me. So I have to pay this, whatever doctor's name is, doesn't matter the name of the physician. So he is the guru here. I am in Canada. So he is the guru, the top guy, and he knows all the stuff. A significant amount of money that I didn't have in that moment, but it was important for me. So I was I need somebody to say, yes, this guy, and look, he wrote and wrote. And finally, I have the proof that I think different. Without this, no, you are looking for excuses. Anyway, that's the way it is. That's the nature of things. What else? So finally, my 3 more points. When you are neurodiverse, you are the perfect target for bullies. Why? Because you are going to do the stupid things that anyone do. And this is perfect because maybe that covers their ignorance. I don't know. So I was a little bit tired and emotionally distressed of hiding. And you're trying to hide, but I think it's like transpiration. It smells. People get it. Even if you try your best to pretend that I am Mr. I can do things right. No. It's bigger than your ability to camouflage. So as a grown-up man, I ended up saying, I'm tired of this. I'm going to tell the world who I am. Nothing to lose. And I was without job for the last year plus. And I made the decision on LinkedIn. I post something in these notes like, if I knew about neurodiversity when I was at school, life would be different. And people were like, shit, this guy, why he's saying this, blah, blah, blah. Something happening in the universe in ways that I don't understand. Probably that energy that was compressed during all these years, suddenly I'm releasing, I'm telling the world, yes, I think I see things substantially different than average. And I don't know how things work, but then I got a job and I started 2 months ago. I am a professor at a university. I'm proud of that. But I make the irony because we work very hard and it's difficult. Even if I smile about and if I make fun of my neurodiversity, is very hard. One of the most difficult things, my son stopped talking to me when I told him, buddy, I see things way different. What do you mean, Dad? And I explained him, this is the way that I operate. He stopped talking to me 3 years ago. It's cheating. Okay, so the positive things, I got a new job. I'm happy. I don't know if this is the result of freeing that energy, liberating that frustration. I don't know how things work in the universe. I've been invited to be a consultant. I'm working with NDGiFT, an amazing organization trying to generate this conversation around neurodiversity. And for me, that even I was so afraid of doing this or taking this step, I think is the best decision that I ever made. And we need to have the conversation. Currently today, on top of my new job, I'm doing a podcast on loneliness. I am writing a graphic novel on neurodiversity, and I wanna start the conversation in a positive note, because as I indicated before, it has a big emotional toll. And the last thing that we should do is like, oh, per you. It's not about per me. It's about like, there's some elements that we can bring in here and we can show neurodiversity in a unique way. So that's the goal of my graphic novel. And I'm glad that you organize, Peter, this conversation, because we need to start having this conversation. We need to stop being afraid of telling the world who we are.
Excellent point. Very, very wonderfully said. We have a couple of people, so I'm gonna choose by screen, so no one feels snobby. About 5 people who want to raise their hand. So I'm gonna go next with Corey. Corey, you want?
Hi, yeah. First, I just want to say I'm very happy for you, Guillermo, that things are going well. It's good to hear that. I am neurodivergent. I can say for sure that I'm a highly sensitive person. I have some traits of autism. I have some traits of ADHD. At my age, I'm 44. I'm not sure what would be the point of getting a diagnosis. And I have a whole bunch of health conditions that I've had to battle to get doctors to recognize and take care of me. So I just don't have the energy to seek a diagnosis. But I also have a daughter who's 6 years old. She's autistic, which is kind of what led me to understand why I've always felt like an alien on this planet. So anyway, there's that. And I would say, like, having all this combination of things going on for myself. I also have a master's degree in HR, and I've worked in HR for a while. My advice to be safe, as far as disclosure, is to wait until you have a job offer to say anything about it, because you don't want to have the doubt that you didn't get the job because of that. And I don't want to say that people shouldn't be free to be themselves. You know, if you really feel strongly that I need to disclose right now in this interview, and if you're a company who can't handle it, then I don't want to be here. You know, that's totally understandable. But on the other hand, I think that if you want to eliminate the possibility that there's discrimination before you even get a chance to get in the door, I would wait to disclose until you're talking to your manager and tell them what you need. And that's all I wanted to share. Thanks.
Thanks a lot, Corey. That's good advice. So next I'm going to call on Diana. Diana, unmute.
Sorry for that. Yeah, so I wanted to share some thoughts because I also see this as a recurring theme in this conversation, that regardless whether you disclose your situation to the employer, or even the employer like IBM actively want to create some neurodiverse inclusive environment, the main problem seems to be that people don't know much about it. They've heard about autism, but even about autism, what is it? And myself, I am dyslexic, and I knew I was dyslexic since maybe middle school, but I was diagnosed in my I was 30 something, 37, 38. And even I did it just to have a factual proof of something I already knew. Actually, the process of diagnosis taught me about this kind of neurodiversity, because I did not know everything about it. For example, I did not know what are the strengths associated with dyslexic people. I knew everybody heard about spelling problems and sometimes math problem associated with it. Maybe that one not everybody knew, but I think very few people knew, including myself, about the strengths associated with this kind of neurodiversity. And the same situation with companies like IBM trying to hire neurodiverse people, only knowing about some autistic people who have highly technical skills. So myself, what I'm trying to find, and I was looking online actively, and maybe this group can do it maybe later on, I would myself want to learn about each of those conditions, because even about my own condition, I did not know everything about it. So autism, I don't know much about autism. What are the weaknesses? What are the strengths? ADHD, what are weaknesses, what are strengths, what are other neurodiverse conditions? I never heard about anything else, but maybe there are other kind of conditions which are out there with their weaknesses and their strengths. So this is, I think it's necessary not just for the employers, but also for people who have these conditions to understand themselves better. For example, in my case, I've learned about my strengths, and I realized that my whole adult life, I was putting all my effort to compensate my weaknesses. And I never even paid attention to my strengths. I just oversaw them. I never used them. I never used them for my advantage. Now I know my strengths, and I would focus on my strengths, and I would delegate the things which will be hard for me because of my natural weaknesses. So the whole my life I was doing the reverse, wasting a lot of time and effort and health issues associated with exhaustion, right? And that's also commenting on Corey, who said that being in her 40s, 44, she doesn't think she needs diagnosis. I did it when I was close to 40, just because I wanted a formality. I just wanted this paper. I don't know why, just to prove for myself that still with these weaknesses, I was managed to get somewhere in life. But I got so much more out of it, learning about my strengths and also changing my tactics in life, putting more emphasis on the strengths. So I'm very curious, other conditions, what are they? What are autistic people tend to be strong at? If we have some resources where both employers and people who have all kind of spectrums can learn and understand, okay, so what are the strengths, what are the weaknesses, what not to ask this person to do, and what maybe we have to involve this person to do because it seems to come naturally easy. So those are my thoughts. I'm not sure that everybody would be interested, but I definitely would be interested in educating myself about all kind of neurodiverse people, because at most I know about my condition. I don't know anything else. So what to expect from people who are not on the neurodiverse spectrum? Why are they supposed to know what it means? Even ourselves, we don't know much about it. So I would love to learn about all these situations and people, because actually what I'm now trying to understand is that it's not a small fraction of people. I saw dyslexic people are around 5-7%. The numbers I'm seeing now is 10-15. It's like every, I don't know what, I'm not good at math, but it's much more people than I expected. So it's a huge amount of people who don't know about their strengths, don't know about their weaknesses, and their employers don't know what to do with them.
Diana, I love the point you made about the fact that if you're neurodiverse, you may not know much about the other subcultures of neurodiversity. And that's certainly true when I started in this work because of my son, who is classic, years ago, we would call them Asperger's. And only when I became involved with the NDGiFTS project did I become more educated on the wider views of what neurodiversity is. Dysgraphia, dyslexia, ADHD. So you're right. It's, that's a very good point. There should be a good clearinghouse for basic information, so that if you build a community, everyone in that community within different knows what the other members are referring to or what they're dealing with, and what not only their challenges are, but what their strengths are as well. That's an excellent point. I'm gonna let that idea percolate in my head for the next week or so, and then probably make a suggestion to a few people. But thank you for that. So we have 3 more people who want to speak. So I'm going to identify them, and we'll do Sue, and then Rich, and then Elise. So Sue, you can take it away.
Hi, I just want to build on a couple of points I think Melissa and Guillermo have already raised, and it's like with respect to the weighting that the psychological assessment has in getting accommodation. And I'm just going through the process right now. I had no intention of getting a diagnosis, but work has sort of forced me into the situation where I had to go and do it. And now I'm just struggling because I'm finding there's a lot of conflict between what the assessment says and where I think my own strengths and weaknesses are. And there was a lot of good information and stuff I've learned about myself. But there are also certain areas where I know I struggle and the assessment doesn't seem to support it, and then no one's taking me serious, and I'm finding it hard to get accommodated in that way. And the other thing I found frustrating too is even in areas where I ranked in, like there's one instance where I was in the bottom 1% of the population and the bottom 8% of the population, my diagnosing psychologist said, well, I'm not even comfortable saying that you have a learning disability in these areas because you've always done well work-wise and academically. So clearly, you know, you've been able to compensate. But then my argument is that at what cost? Because I know I've had, you know, a lot of severe health problems as a result, or I'll go home and I'll have like a complete shutdown. I was often blacking out, fainting after work. Even areas where I'm marginally okay, like I was surprised to learn how poorly I do with math. And I was actually a finance manager for 3 years and I did fine at the job. But when I got home, I was so burned out, like I couldn't, you know, even manage to boil a pot of water without the kettle going dry, you know. So, but I wouldn't want someone reading the report say, well, you could never do a math related job, because I did one and I was fine and my performance reviews are great. And there's all these little conflicts, you know, and now I'm in a situation where, ironically, I've been put in an instructional design job based on the fact that I produce excellent briefing material for the past 20 years in another area, and they're trying to say, well, it's exactly the same type of work, and I'm like, it's not, and I'm having trouble convincing them that I can't process visual information, and what they want are more visuals, and they're not even following universal design principles where I am. So that's a whole other story. And yeah, just getting people to take your word for it. And the piece of paper is great. Like there's areas where it's definitely building and bolstering my case, but there's definitely areas where it's doing me a disservice. So I'd be curious to know what other people's experiences are in that regard.
Over here. Thanks, Sue. That makes there are 3 instructional designers here. Interesting. Rich, do you want to chime in?
Yes, thank you very much. Thanks, Peter, for another great meeting this month. And yeah, thanks everyone for being here. What a great topic. It took me over 60 years to make a decision to disclose. You know, now, years ago, I would have had to say that I was crazy. Years ago, I would have had to say, you know, there's a lot of words, lots of words over the years that have been used to describe people who are neurodiverse. And I'm really glad that neurodiverse and neurodivergent came on the scene. But before that actually even happened, to my knowledge, I came up with my own word because I couldn't describe myself. And I'm an entrepreneur. I am neurodiverse, and my diagnosis today is OCD. You know, I don't even know what my diagnosis was in 83 when I was hospitalized for a month. But let's just say I feel that, I mean, I describe myself as somebody with mental illness, and then I see how fast it takes them to run away and to be afraid of me. Because I just feel that today the stigma's got to go. And so I made the decision to disclose. And in my new business, I started business 1998, and I help basically nonprofits do job development as a consultant. But my background is about 10 years in the temp service industry, in sales management, and branch management. And then in the early 90s, I got into workforce development. And then by the late 1990s, I focused in my own business, 1998, with helping people with disabilities get jobs. So here I am working for a nonprofit that helps people with mental illness get jobs, but I never disclosed that I had mental illness. So disclosure is a very difficult decision. I think it's a very personal decision. And so now I have come for Career Connections, my new company, and I'm a career coach. And I My clients are all queers. So I told you I had to come up with a new word. So I did. Qualified individuals with invisible disabilities. And if you know anybody who needs a speaker, I can speak on, are you a queer? Because it's interesting to look at what does it mean to be qualified? What does it mean to be an individual? What does it mean to be invisible? And what does it mean to have a disability? Because there are some people who might have disabilities and they can't accept that. And there are other people who have disabilities but don't know how and where to be themselves, because it's very, very tricky, as we all know. The other thing that I'm doing in this business this time that I didn't do last time was I am a consultant with the Harrison Assessment, which is a talent management system used by corporations. And the career navigator within the talent management system allows me to help my clients to see their individual traits. This is 175 traits analysis, but it's done with reports that will help somebody see what they enjoy. It was all based on suitability, not eligibility. Now, we've been talking a little bit about, I can do this, therefore it was suggested that I use a transferable skill in order to do it again, which is fine, and it'll help you get hired. I mean, that's our workforce development system today, is all based on skills-based assessment, mostly, I would say, to my knowledge. Unless anybody else has other information, please find me and let me know, because this is my field, is to see if I can actually somehow impact so that people don't always just have to look at a skills-based assessment. They can actually see what they enjoy and then go do it and see the traits that they enjoy using and the traits they don't enjoy using. It's very individualized way of seeing themselves. And then there are reports used for screening candidates. So my goal and my dream is to move beyond private career coaching and to actually get into consulting. So I am talking to some entities that can help me do that, because there's got to be a way not just to help the people see themselves more clearly and their qualifications, but also help the employers to have some kind of a tool so that they can just hire people based on what both they can and should do, which is really what employers are looking to do. So it's some new stuff. And by the way, if there's anybody who knows of a college or university who would like to study whether predictive analytics, like the Harrison that I use, could actually improve employment outcomes for individuals with disabilities, please contact me, because I'm looking to see if there's anybody who wants to get involved with research. Thank you very much. That's what I have.
And in regards to your last question, my first thought would be Landmark College in Vermont. You might want to reach out to them.
Thank you.
So they're the first top of my list. They have been for years a place that has been very welcoming to people dealing with various challenges. And so I think you would find a conducive culture there. And certainly in your work with employers, apart from recognizing the talents of these employees, figuring out the sometimes overlooked ways in which they can make these employees feel unwelcome and therefore less safe to self-disclose, I think is another important thing that you can probably advise them on. Because again, I think even well-intentioned employers can sometimes miss the mark and lose that connection with a neurodiverse employee. There's a lot of work to do in this area, and obviously that's one thing. So Elise, you were very patient, and you had your hand up, so I'm going to pass the mic, as it were, over to you.
Thanks, Peter. I apologize that I'm actually transitioning in between sites doing neurodiversity in the workplace trainings. So I'm not able to read the chat feature, but I really wanted to be here. Most of my comments were better articulated previously. So the one thing that I do want to say is my role, I'm at Mass General Hospital in Boston, and some of my colleagues are also on this call. And really our charge that we're working on is bridging the space between the clinical, quote, clinical literature and first-person accounts and narratives of neurodiversity in the workplace, because there's just this unfathomable chasm that you've all provided such powerful anecdotes here today. And one of the challenges that we're running into and hopefully chipping away at is really pairing HR departments that are looking for literature and looking for a more standardized training approach with what can also be more powerful examples of where there are limitations to having a really diagnostically centered lens. So a lot of the legal language and a lot of the resources out there for HR departments is fairly diagnostically centered, and that really has a lot of limitations, and the neurodiversity movement is certainly throwing its weight to push that forward and allow individuals to decide how much they want to identify themselves with a particular diagnosis, as opposed to certain categories like executive functioning or social communication, and think of it more of kind of like volume levels on an equalizer there. One thing that I wanted to point out that was a glimmer of hope in recent years is I worked with a lot of local school systems to create, you actually mentioned this early on in the call, kind of a database of fact versus fiction resources, and helping people figure out how do you even vet sources. That's a trigger topic over the course of the last couple of years. So I'll save that soapbox for another day. But it's been really promising that a lot of public schools are embracing this idea of creating fact versus fiction resources so that you don't have to be a special educator and you don't have to get held up in red tape to help yourself be better educated. And so we're starting to see that trickle into HR departments and neurodiversity in the workplace. And I just hope that trend continues. So thanks to everyone on this call for your sharing your perspectives and the work that you're doing outside of this call.
Thank you, Lee. That's wonderful news, and I hope your colleagues keep up the good work. And also too, in terms of this idea of building a resource, I welcome anybody to send me suggestions in terms of what this resource might provide to people, because I'm trying to formulate the model for the IBMers who might be interested in that. And one of the things I've learned about database design is that you want to tell everybody up front what you're looking for, because they're not going to change it later on. So I'm really trying to make sure I don't leave anything out of the description of what I'm looking for. And so as much input as I can from people is highly valued. I basically said to IBM, because I said, you guys, you're great tech people, you're doing this neurodiverse thing. I know you like to do big projects like Watson that really get attention. Hey, wouldn't it be cool if you built something like this? I think that caught their attention. But they're still waiting to see what it is I'm looking for them to build. So I hope anyone feel free to send me some of their ideas, and I'll drop my email in the chat so you can forward. Because again, this may be my one shot, so I really want to formulate my argument as well as I can, because as we've all noticed, is that there's a really need for some sort of centralized resource that people can go to, because there's too much of this, a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit there. I mean, for example, when Rich asked about colleges, I immediately thought Landmark, but he shouldn't have to wait for somebody like me. There should be a resource where he can go to and says, colleges, research, neurodiversity, boom, and then something comes up with contact information. That's what's needed. That would save a lot of time, and it's completely buildable. So, so without further, there's been so many wonderful contributions. This is one of, I think, the best meetings we've had so far this year in terms of having a real communal conversation. Is anyone else who is in on the meeting who hasn't contributed yet to their thoughts and wants to share them with us in our last few minutes, you're welcome to do so.
I'd love to hear more from Andrew, if that's all right, about this neurodiversity hub that he linked. It sounds like it's doing some of the things that you're looking at, but I'm curious kind of how it evolved and how it might really address like getting people work ready, but also helping them find good and friendly and supportive workspaces.
Yeah, no, there's just a lot there. Andrew Eddy is one of the people who runs it. Andrew's really good in building it, so I'm sure he would appreciate any contributions. I think he's presented with either Stanford or other places and just knows people. He's in Australia, so he his time zone makes things more difficult in general, but like Landmark's on there. That's kind of the idea with the neurodiversity hub. So there's a lot of great information there already.
Excellent.
So
yeah,
no, it's a good idea, right? Just again, if it already exists, but then that's also a thing. Then how, if you don't know that exists, then who knows that it exists? which is, you know, a problem in itself.
So Andrew, do you think that if would there be interesting linkage between what I'm talking about with IBM and what you're doing? Because again, I don't want to reduplicate efforts, but I'd like to see if I can bring in more resources to something that's already existing, if that's the case.
What am I doing?
In terms of the hub that was being described, well, I should say the hub.
Yeah, so the hub isn't mine.
Okay. All right. So anyway,
I do see IBM listed actually on the site as a network partner. So I don't know if that's.
So yeah, that doesn't surprise me. You could reach out to, if you send me an email, I can make an introduction to Andrew Eddy to you. I'd be shocked if he didn't know Tiffany already. I think he does. But Andrew Eddy's fantastic. So I can make an introduction, and, you know, it's more the fact that he's just in Australia. So I see your email. I'm going to do a very, very quick introduction.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. In all this work, Australia really seems to be ahead.
But he does a lot in the US too. He just happens to, you know, be there. And so.
I concur, Peter. It seems like Australia and a lot of Europe, well, that's not Europe, but I'm just saying it seems like we're kind of like, you know, falling behind, obviously.
Well, you know,
research and yeah.
I'm sorry, actually, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt. But well, I mean, it's not surprising. Judy Singer, who gave us the term neurodiversity.
From Australia.
It's Australia. The funny thing is, there's a sense of deja vu. As I mentioned before, my digital training is in the field of instructional design and online learning. And when I first got into that field, one of the things you noticed was that a lot of the literature about distance learning was coming out of Australia. And the reason for that was that the Australians had a head start in terms of distance education due to the outback and having to do education over wireless for people in remote areas. And so they already had been thinking about distance education using other technology for a long time. So when online came along, there was already an embedded underawareness of new modalities of learning. So yeah, there's a lot of innovation going out there. Yeah, so I think it's that reverse summer winter thing that really stirs the imagination. So who knows? But yeah, we owe them a lot of better things. Mike, you got your hand up.
I've been reflecting for the last few months how similar the discussion on disclosure is to one I was going through over 40 years ago on coming out as gay. Again, a sort of dispersed, largely invisible minority, and a lot of challenges around making yourself visible. In those days, it was an existential threat. You could have been deaded easily. I nearly was more than once. And so it's different now, but I'm just wondering if there's anything to learn from that journey, which became, you know, maybe because of the time, it's very political, very, very strong, very out there. You know, the gay rights movement started in the Stonewall pub with drag queens setting light to police cars. Now, I shan't be wearing heels because I'm scared of heights, but you know, there's got to be parallels there to things to be learned from. That it wasn't always polite, I suppose. That's what I'm thinking.
Right.
Yeah, I definitely think there's obviously an interesting article there somewhere about drawing lessons of formerly invisible communities, how presently invisible communities move forward. Certainly studying the experiences and tactics, I think is very important. And the other thing too is, even in a moment when there is a great conversation publicly about diversity, the danger is that neurodiversity will not be included in that conversation, because the model that I encounter when I speak to people about diversity in my work is that it is around LGBTQ or race. Those are the most prominent ones at the moment, but neurodiversity is not an issue. And I recall a few years ago encountering an alumni from Brown University in Providence, Rhode Island, being really upset about the fact that Brown had launched, made significant financial commitment to diversity at their university, but neurodiversity didn't seem to have been part of that model that they were projecting. They wanted to be leaders, but they had, at least at the time, some significant blind spots about what diversity meant. So yeah, even people who are seen at the forefront of diversity work are sometimes themselves unaware. So Mike?
There's something else that we were talking about, strengths, and I put a point in the tech chat that I think we're still discovering what we are. You know, that if we just look to what's been documented, we'll miss the fact that it's still being evolving and being created. And when we meet, we recognize it and give it oxygen. But certainly,
So,
I draw on you know, things that I recognize in descriptions of ADHD, which is one of the things I strongly identify with. You know, the kind of oppositional defiance disorder. I can get really angry. You know, I can get really angry at RC and put that focus behind it when I need to, and I you know, and it's kind of involuntary anger at things, but I can still channel it.
so one thing I would strongly suggest is, you know, sorry, just last thing, and I know I have another stop in a few minutes, but that is partial disclosure. So if we're all still figuring out what neurodiversity is and what it means to us, how do we expect an employer to know what it means when you say you have ADHD? So everyone has had a hangover for the most part. Maybe not Jeff, he's too nice. No, I'm just kidding. Sorry, picking. But like everyone knows what it's like to have a bad headache or migraine and to be sensitive to the lights, right? And the lights hurt my eyes, right? It's just, but like saying ADHD, like what does that mean? Right? Like if you don't know, if we don't know, how is an employer going to know? So that's why I'm a fan of partial disclosure, because it's very easy to say, you know what, I prefer communication like this. I prefer, and just make it very, you know, specific, you know, repeatable and understandable. That's sometimes just way more helpful. Like, you know, may not know what dyslexia means, but if somebody says, well, you know, I do better with verbal instructions than written instructions. Okay. So
Yeah.
that's way more helpful. So I want to add that too. So
Thanks, Andrew. Yeah, again, we're gonna do a hard stop in about a minute or so. I see two hands quick. So Rich and Diane both had hands up, so we'll do quick and then we'll close up because I know people have to go to other things. And for those of you who have to jump off, thank you for coming. Particularly Andrew, and I want to thank Andrew, Jeff, and Melissa for being our lead conversationalists and really prompting it. And particular thanks to Andrew for writing a little piece that really kind of prompted me to think about the topic. So
thank you.
So Rich, you said something you wanted to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that the idea of disclosure could certainly lead to not like Mike was saying, the idea of a physical harm, but an economic harm for the individual. But the good point is this: in the United States, there is a mandate for every government contractor and subcontractor to hire more people with disabilities. It's been around since about 2014, I think. And the point is that by more strategically going to those employers that they need the numbers, and they're being audited by the OFCCP, and so by the Department of Labor. So if you go to the right employer and then you educate them, because again, even though they're a government contractor, they may not know anything about hiring people with disabilities. The point is that's a structure, at least a strategy for improving your situation based on your invisible disability and disclosure. Okay, that's enough out of me for now.
Thanks, Rich. Diana, I'll leave you to give you the last word there.
Yeah, I just want to agree that even neurodiverse people don't know much about the conditions. So we all need education, us and employers. And building on Mike's analogy with the gay movement, what can we learn? I'm still to learn more about that movement, but my understanding that any movement, it's a handful of people who speak out and educate everybody else about the issue, whether we are talking about women's rights or gay rights. And I'm not sure we need to put some police cars on fire. So I'm not this kind of person. But yeah, I really look forward to find the educational resources or to participate in building educational resources where everybody, including employers, can learn and understand better about all this spectrum of wonderful people. And it should not be a lot of people, because what I understand, all the movements, it's just like a handful of people, just making it visible. So maybe we can do the same for neurodiverse community.
That is an excellent thought, and it's a perfect closing thought. So I'm going to say thank you again to everyone who participated today. It's been a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much for taking the time and sharing with us. And I hope you have a wonderful week, and I hope to see you guys again next month. Take care, everybody.
Take care, Peter. Take care, guys.
Thanks, Peter. Good seeing everyone.